Hello, I'm Eon Borealis, and if somebody off of that guy with the glasses happens to find this video, I have this much to say. If you're looking for somebody who gives critical opinions and certain information, or just expresses their views on programming blocks or current channels such as Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, and Disney, I'm your woman. I'm a faithless entity that makes videos possibly with big blocks of text and pictures describing my absolute rage towards how children's programming is set up and how certain channels do things. Okay, enough of that. I'm pretty much kidding by putting that particular spot out there. I'm not really trying to get onto that particular website. I just thought it'd be funny to open with that. I'm trying to inject a bit more humor into these videos. Probably not very successful on my part, but I thought it might add a little bit of something here and there. Well, moving on from that, this video is the promised Adult Swim video. I know a while back I was requested to do a rant on Adult Swim, but I've just been kind of scratching my head on and off as how to really approach this particular topic, because I haven't really known exactly what to say. This is pretty much going to be a generalized video about my views and opinions at this particular point in time on Adult Swim in general. I'm not really going to be talking about any other programming in specific, because I'm just going to say this up front. I could care less for some of their original programming. More specifically, some of their live-action ventures and a couple of their animated shows. And let's just leave it at that. I'm not going to get more specific because, quite frankly, it holds no relevance to what I really want to discuss in this video. I'm going to start out by sort of going over some of Adult Swim's history. Adult Swim officially started back in 2001, and in 2005 it became an official separate entity from Cartoon Network. So technically you could say it's a completely different channel, but what I'm wondering is, why hasn't it just become its own channel by now? It's still kind of sharing runtime and airtime with Cartoon Network. The reason why it was split from Cartoon Network in the first place was because of Turner Broadcasting and the Nielsen rating system or something like that. But beyond that, I really don't think there's much of a difference. I still consider them practically the same program. I'm addressing them as two different entities, but well, what I really want to discuss is something that happened back in 2007. Apparently, Aqua Teen Hunger Force was going to get a theatrical release in theaters. So some of the people behind Aqua Teen Hunger Force got together and started drawing up plans to put up advertisements in several different places. The planning actually started as early as 2006, somewhere in that particular year. And they pretty much had advertisements such as the LED lights in the shapes of characters like Shake, Meatwad, etc., set up all over 41 different locations. But they ran into some trouble as soon as they came to Boston. On January 31st, 2007, a bunch of people saw these particular LED light displays all over, like on the sides of buildings, on walls, and some people actually went as far as thinking that they were bombs of some sort. This brought in the police, and the creators of the show got arrested. What happened was that not only did the creators of Aqua Teen Hunger Force get backlash and criticism from some of the major news broadcasters, such as Fox News. I actually saw their report on this on television. They also ended up having to pay a fine. They were charged not guilty on May 11, 2007. So the most they ended up having to do was pay a fine and 80 and 60 hours of community service, respectively. After the event, this is just an interesting side note, some people actually went and got these LED light displays where they could find them and tried selling them on eBay for $500 or more a pop. Too bad I don't have one of those. Personally, I'd like to try selling one of those now and seeing how much they could go for. I'll bet they still might be able to go for quite a bit of money. Probably not as much as they did in the heat of the moment, but still. Moving on from that particular point, the creators of the show actually made an episode in Season 5, specifically regarding the details of what happened on January 1st, 2007, called Boston. But Adult Swim didn't let them air it because it seemed like it'd be too controversial an episode to show. My thoughts in regards to this would be they could have chosen a different tactic to advertise their movie. I mean, I'm not against them having a theatrical movie. I'm not necessarily a huge fan of Aqua Teen Hunger Force as a whole, but didn't they have a website that they could be advertising this on, or couldn't they post trailers on YouTube maybe, or even have advertisements placed all over Adult Swim's official webpage? I'm pretty sure they already had these, and I'm guessing they set up the LED lights as a practical joke, and a lot of people probably did find it funny. But considering the controversy that happened, not a good advertising move, and I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm just surprised that it actually survived this controversy and sort of just treaded on beyond that. As a matter of fact, I'm kind of wondering if this led to the show gaining even more fans, because it's still on to this day. I mean, there's still episodes of it, and I'm fairly sure it might just be getting green-lighted for another season. I'm not entirely sure on that, but I wouldn't doubt that that's true. Yet, while Aqua Teen Hunger Force is still around, this particular event led to then-President Jim Staples stepping down and Stuart Snyder stepping up. The result of this specifically links more to what happened on Cartoon Network than Adult Swim. The reason why I brought up this event at all was because I kind of wanted to debunk one of my own personal theories, and I'm wondering if anybody else shared this too. The fact that this event is directly responsible for things such as CN Real or other kinds of live-action programming making it onto Cartoon Network at all. But that was a pretty ridiculous assumption on my part. Just because Jim Staples stepped down and Stuart Snyder stepped up, that does not put the blame on Adult Swim for live action being on Cartoon Network. The real blame doesn't even rest directly on Stuart Snyder's shoulders either. Common sense says that if you really want to point a finger of blame at somebody for stuff like CN Real or live action, it goes to the person that came up with the concept or the rigmarole of shows that they had in the first place, and whoever decided to green light it. Some fault goes to Stuart Snyder for letting the stuff get green lighted and thinking it was a good executive position, I guess, if you want to point fingers of blame, but not all the blame goes directly on him. Moving on from there, one of the things I really wanted to discuss about Adult Swim in general, one of the biggest topics that really seems to be correlated with this, is Adult Swim's overall attitude towards their anime programming. Well, the attitude that they've seemed to hold since 2007 to 2008 and beyond anyway. Back in 2005, I believe they still had a fairly healthy lot of anime. Things like Ghost in the Shell and other programming like that, Cowboy Bebop. But as soon as you get to 2008, they're making moves such as rescheduling shows like Code Geass to be at 5 in the morning, sorry if I mispronounced that, instead of earlier. In other words, the ratings for that show pretty much sunk because of how late at night it was on, or how late at night it was showing. That pretty much killed the ratings for those particular shows. But that's not the only move that would contribute to people saying that Adult Swim might hate anime in some way, shape, or form. What really seems to leave a bad taste in an anime fan's mouth when it comes to Adult Swim would be some of the bumpers and commercials that have made appearances on Adult Swim throughout the years. There haven't really been any bumpers and commercials like that lately, but the fact that they were on there at all kind of says something. What these bumpers and commercials really were, or seemed like in essence, was Adult Swim taking a great big chunk of porterhouse steak and hovering it above the piranha being their anime fan base, and just sort of pulling it back over and over and over and chuckling with some sort of sinister glee and going, "We're going to cancel anime! We're going to cancel anime!" Moving from that point, with bumpers and commercials like that on Adult Swim, it really seems like there's a lot of negative attitude from some of the people on Adult Swim towards anime in general, and it seems like they hate it to some degree. But if they hated it so much, wouldn't they have gotten rid of every last anime show on their programming block by now? And all we'd be seeing there instead would be something like Tim and Eric, or really any other kind of show that they have as original programming. On Saturday nights, there's still an anime block, and they've picked up some fairly decent shows, such as Full Metal Alchemist, Bleach, one of their more recent acquisitions, Do Ra 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 Ra. I do not know the full name of that showing. But, yeah. Somebody on the Adult Swim staff still likes anime to some degree and is still pitching some kind of effort to keep it on the channel. I'm not going to deny that there's probably some people over there that hate it with a passion. Heck, from watching other YouTube videos, I've seen things from people saying that they've called Adult Swim and pretty much blatantly being told that Adult Swim doesn't like anime, just in some sort of sarcastic, roundabout way, to another YouTube video actually saying that Full Metal Alchemist was almost turned down from being on Adult Swim at all, or Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, but the only reason it got through was because somebody who had a really high position pushed it through because they wanted to see it on the actual channel. The only thing I have to personally go off of saying that that some people at Adult Swim hate anime is those bumpers or commercials, but I don't really think that's enough proof to really say that they hate it overall. I'm not saying that there aren't people that dislike it, but that's not the entire group. There's quite a few people still on that team that like anime enough that they're going to put some kind of effort into keeping it on Adult Swim's programming block. And when it comes to anime as a whole, how much money is Adult Swim really making off of showing anime in the first place? It costs a lot to license and distribute anime here in the US, doesn't it? And the people who own the licensing, they're the ones really making the money, because when you see the DVDs out for sale, the money that comes from the DVD sales goes to the licensors. So some of the bitterness towards having anime on Adult Swim's channel might be due to profit. The only time they're making profit is when it's from one of their original programs, like Aqua Teen Hunger Force or Venture Brothers or something like that. With anime, I don't think they're making as much profit. And to add insult to injury in some cases, anime is still some of their more highest rated shows. I'll bet they get a lot more ratings on things like Family Guy or American Dad and their anime block than a lot of their original programming. If there was just some way for them to make some sort of profit off of anime, I'll bet there would be more anime blocks and programming on the channel. But until they really make some kind of profit off of it, it's not really going to happen. In response to Adult Swim's reactions towards anime, I'm kind of wishing that that wasn't one of the only sources that you or I or anybody else that's an anime fan had to watching anime. One of the biggest things that might be contributing to things like that too would be the fact that the US and Japan have been in some pretty bad economic situations lately. So maybe when that starts turning around again, it'd be a good idea to start pitching for the US to get an anime channel. That would probably be the best link to bringing anime back to the US instead of depending on Adult Swim to do it, because quite frankly, I don't really have much faith in them on their part, and I don't really expect them to be an anime provider. It's nice that they have the programming block that they do and that there are people on the team that enjoy anime, but not really who I'd be depending on to bring anime to the US. And besides, Cartoon Network has kiddie anime on Saturday mornings. Nicktoons Network picked up the rights to Dragon Ball Z Kai. They're going to be picking up another anime pretty soon here called Monsuno or whatever. In other words, there's still anime coming to the US. It's just not as predominantly to Adult Swim. I'm guessing just keep an eye out in other places. The last thing I'd want to say about Adult Swim as a whole, it's definitely one of the freakiest programming blocks I've seen. From the bizarre bumpers of cats popping up out of cement blocks, to shows like China, Illinois, or even Squidbillies. It's bizarre and it has a wacky spirit in and of itself. It might be sort of catering to my demographic or the age demographic that I'm actually in, but I'm just not all that interested in its programming. So personally, if I'm going to make any kind of commentary or comments about Adult Swim as a whole, it would have to be on stuff I actually might pay attention to or look at, which is exactly what this video is. So this video is pretty much the sum of all I have to say in regards to Adult Swim and two of the biggest topics that I felt like I personally wanted to discuss about it. This is probably going to be the last video you ever really see on Adult Swim unless I see anything else along the lines of those two particular topics, or the topics that I discussed in this video. Yeah, that's pretty much it. This is Eon, signing off. Bye!